Hey everybody, today we are talking about Sugar Cookie Murder by Joanne Fluke. So in this video we are going to be making the recipe for sugar cookies. This book is actually very different than the other books. It's a lot smaller in the sense that about probably at least half of the book is just recipes. This is almost just a cookbook. No. The story itself happens pretty quickly because it is all revolving around this one event that's happening in just one night. So after a few hours, the story is already done. And the last half of the book consists of all of the recipes that are going into the cookbook for their town. This cookbook they have been working to get put together for a few months now. It was mentioned in the other books before this one as well. They were trying to get the recipes ready so that they could print this cookbook of all the collection of recipes from the people that live in this town. And so this event that was happening was during Christmas time, and it was a big like ball event. There was a dance, but the beginning of it is a dinner, and it's in the form of like a potluck dinner, and all the food from the sides all the way to the desserts are the food that are the recipes that are in this cookbook. And so that is why all of them are at the end of this book. And so this is our setting for the story. I'm gonna get started on getting some of the cookie stuff going, and then we will resume on how this murder mystery gets started. So I've already combined the sugar and the butter in here. We just have to mix it a little bit. And then after that, we have to add the baking powder and the eggs and the salt in here. And then the last step is to add the flour and then mix it all together into a nice dough. So Hannah Swenson is at this center making sure that all the meals are prepared and ready and organized so that they can be taken out during each part of the meal. So since this involves the whole town and everyone is really excited, there's going to be a huge turnout because everyone wants to try the food that is going into this cookbook that everyone has contributed to. And even like the publisher or maybe the editor, someone that's like in charge of the cookbook, has decided to come as well so that they can try out some of the foods and see what is going to be going into this cookbook that he's helping produce. So it's a pretty big deal. So one of the characters that is really important to this particular story, he went to Vegas after getting divorced from his wife, and rumor has it that he ended up marrying someone that he met there in Vegas, and they are thinking that it was probably a showgirl. And so there's kind of this little rumor going around, and they're really anxious because he's coming to this thing. He's coming back to town and he's bringing his new wife, and nobody's met her yet. And so there's a lot of anticipation there. And of course his ex-wife and his mother-in-law, past ex-mother-in-law, and his mother is going to be there, and they're all interested in seeing who this woman is now that he now has married so hastily. And so that is like the main part of this book is really centered around that story. I'm gonna go ahead and add these eggs in here now and start mixing this together, and then all we'll need to do is add the flour next. So this lady that he married, her name is Brandywine, and they're thinking that has to be a stage name. There's no way that can be her actual name. And so that is even making it even more intriguing for them to meet her. This recipe actually does say that it's going to serve 8 dozen cookies depending on your size, and I did not even want to risk it coming out to be that much cookies because that is too much for a house of 2 people. So I decided to cut it in half, and I'll probably make the cookies a little bit bigger, and so I'm assuming that it's going to be less than 4 dozen still, even though I've only halved it. This recipe in itself is actually pretty easy. It's just combining your basic cookie type of ingredients together and then letting the dough chill and then cutting out pieces in little different styles. I was gonna make Christmas cookies, but since it took me a while to get to this video because I was reading so many other things and I made those videos first, it's getting closer to Valentine's Day now than it is Christmas, so I'm going to be making my cookies in heart shapes. but the story itself is definitely centered around Christmas time. So there is that inconsistency that you will see here. All right, so the cookie dough is done, but we do need to chill it for a couple of hours. Now, in terms of our murder mystery, there has yet to be a murder that I've told you about. Well, here it is. Brandy Wine was found stabbed with a vintage cutting knife in the parking lot, half covered in snow from the blizzard. How on earth did this happen? We will find out after this has chilled and I have come back to cut the cookies into heart shapes. All right, we have some cooled cookie dough and we're gonna go ahead and flour our surface and get started on making some hearts. Why did Brandy Wine get murdered? Well, of course, Hannah is the one that found her. She went out to get something in the car, I think. If memory serves me right, she had some reason to go out there. Maybe it's because the door was slightly open and she was like, why is this open? I can't remember. But she went out there and she saw her lying there with this really fancy vintage antique knife through her stomach, pretty much, a fatal wound. And so she goes back in, she finds Mike, who is there with her. Norman's there too, taking pictures of everything for the cookbook. And so they're both there, but she goes to Mike first, of course, because he's the cop, and lets him know. So he goes out, he finds her, he tells her to we're not gonna disclose it to everyone here at the party yet. We're just gonna keep everyone inside because he thinks the murderer is probably still somewhere in the vicinity. He goes ahead and sets up a little office in her room. She's gonna do some detective work of her own, but she's gonna make sure anything she finds out, she goes back and tells right away to Mike so that he can do his job, since it's his job really to do this. So that is what she does. She tells only a couple people that she thinks needs to know, which is her sister, eventually Norman, and they try to figure out by talking to a couple of people around who might have done it. And they want to make sure that it's not like the husband or the crazy ex-wife or something like that. They get all information. Turns out that none of them did it. So they're going around, they're trying to figure out somebody else, getting more and more information from the people, and they're kind of hitting a standstill. They're really not sure who it could have been because everyone that's the likely suspect seems like they have an alibi. Like they were talking to someone at the time that Brandy slipped away, that she went to the kitchen. And so they're like, we're gonna need some better kind of footage or proof to figure this out. Here's my lovely little heart shaped cookie dough cutter. Just gonna make some little hearts here. So anyway, we go ahead and find out that since Norman was taking photographs this whole time, maybe he took a photograph of Brandy leaving and of like where her last moments were, where she was, why she went outside, all that stuff. And it turns out that he was using a digital camera this time, so he wouldn't have to go get them done in a dark room, which is really great because then he can just right away hook it up to a TV and find out by looking at the pictures what's going on. So they go ahead and do that, and they find some pictures of her taking the antique knife. They can't really tell if it's her. They see somebody's hand on it, and then the next slide, like, it's gone. So they're like, okay, she must have taken it, and someone must have saw her take it, and then they went to go be like, oh, go find her and confront her that she's stealing this really expensive knife that is supposed to be used just for the cakes at the event to get pictures of it, and then it was going to be like sold or whatever, or put into the antique shop of Hannah's mother. So it wasn't, once Brandy found out that it was so expensive, she probably took it so that she could sell it and make some big money real quick. for other reasons that you can find out if you read the book. So that is why she was taking it. She was going to steal it. And so if you want to figure out who the murderer is and who actually it was that found, that saw her taking it and went to go confront her. The interesting thing about this one is it's not necessarily a murder mystery. It's more of like an accidental in defense kind of situation where it was more of an accident than anything. But yeah, if you want to find out who it was that kind of accidentally murdered Brandywine and how they figured it out exactly, then you can go ahead and read the book for yourself. Like I said, this one, if you are not one to read these murder mysteries and you don't really care to know who it was, you're just watching it because you like seeing my fails as a baker, because that's how most of these go. Or maybe you're just watching it because you are a really great supporter of my channel and it doesn't really matter what book I'm talking about. That's great too. I really appreciate you for doing that. But if you do want to read it, it's, out of all of the ones I've done so far, this one is a much shorter read because, like I said, so much of the book is just recipes that are what was served at this event. So it's probably almost half or more of the book is just recipes. So you could get through the story really quick, find out what happened really quickly, because it really does just happen in a couple hours over one night. Okay, these are so, I feel like they're so goopy that they're gonna, like, they have too much butter in it. I did put it in to get, it's just they warmed up again really fast. So they do have some icing that I can put on them to make them look like pink and red and stuff. So I'm going to do that. And I'm gonna make a couple more and we're gonna taste it and see how it goes. So yeah, I will be back with you when these are cooked. All right, so they are done. They actually look pretty good. I was worried that I was going to overcook them like I always do, because I always think that I undercook them. So then I overcook them instead. But I made myself take them out and they look really great. So I'm going to taste one, just a little piece of it plain, and then I'll have some with frosting. Here's one that I made look beautiful. Okay, so let me just take a little piece off. Maybe I can't. Okay. Alas, it tastes just like you think a sugar cookie would taste, which is good. That means I succeeded. Yay. The icing is just powdered sugar mixed with some heavy cream and food coloring. But yeah, that tastes really good. It's definitely really buttery. I feel like there was a lot of butter in this recipe compared to other recipes I've done, but it definitely works well for a cookie that you can ice really easily and put sprinkles on really easily. In fact, this is probably the best turning out homemade sugar cookie dough that I've ever done, which is a good thing, because that means if I wanted to do this again next year for actual Christmas time, then I know that this is a solid recipe to do again and that I know that I can be successful with it. So all around, this was a good day for baking cookies. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you. I really appreciate it, since these videos are usually longer than my other reviews and they're not always books that a lot of people are reading or caring about watching a review for. Thank you, because it makes this even more worth going through all the trouble in knowing that there are people out there that are going to be curious to see how my success is with baking and sticking around. So anyway, I'm rambling now, so I will be done with this video and finish this delicious cookie. Thank you again so much for watching, and I really do appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye. You want some?